So when we look at the Leatherman arc compared to the Leatherman P4, you'll notice there are very many similarities. So they're very close. Now, one of the things I find very interesting is that supposedly these weigh exactly the same amount. So 8.6 ounces or 243 grams. Now you'll notice again the scales or the outside of the tool has changed. The Leatherman arc will be more smooth like a surge or a wave, but then they have this black coating on the outside as well. Otherwise, they look really close. And one of the things I also mentioned is, or noticed rather, is that there is both sides you can add a pocket clip. So that's what got me in the first video. I didn't realize there was a pocket clip on the other side, and then I turned it around eventually and saw it. But so that is something you don't get with the P4. So I'm assuming a lot of people, left or right-handed, had issues with that in that it only came one way. So that is something they did change with the arc. But otherwise, the only thing I notice at the top is the gap of my arc is a little bit wider than on my P4. And I don't know why, because when I open the pliers, to me, it looks like the plier head is almost exactly the same, but it could be the arc is maybe slightly bigger, but they look very similar. So, and one of the things I notice is they both do say USA, stamped in USA, the P4 and the arc. So that is something I did not remember was on my P4, but that is something that has been on there, I guess, for a little while. So again, these look very similar indeed. So the pocket clip, I believe, is the same free pocket clip that we're used to. And then at the end, again, it looks the same to me. Now, I have not gotten crazy on my P4 modifying it, but I may do that in the future. So I'm not as familiar with the inside workings of the P4 as I am with the Wave and the Surge and some other multi-tools. All right, so the arc, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. One of the things I wanted to mention is it does not have spring-loaded technology. So that's something that some people were disappointed about. I believe, if I remember right, one of the garages, perhaps it was the garage release 5, had a bolt right here where you could take apart the pliers and do maintenance, which I wish the arc had, but this does not. On the inside, I think it's one of the biggest positives and also one of the biggest negatives for me is that the bit driver is still the Leatherman proprietary bit. I really would like to see a 1/4" bit driver. I know you can use adapters and so forth, so I guess it's not that big a deal. You can always use the adapter and put it in here, and it's not that big of an issue. This is off one of the 300s. It's either the M or the other one, the EOD. So that works as well. I did think this right here was a little different. You do have this little piece right here where it moves to sort of catch your bit. But this piece right here, I guess, is so that it doesn't fall too far in the frame, I'm guessing. So that it's the right height, but I'm not for sure. So another thing I wanted to mention where this is different than the P4. So let's go ahead and just bring out the tools on the P4 actually. I think it's basically the inside tools where the arc is the biggest difference. So here is, well, I might have to do these individually, but anyway, here's some of the inside smaller tools. So for instance, I really feel like the tool set on the arc is a little bit more mature, I guess you could say. A lot of these people had issues with these seeming more like they were from off the Wingman or the Rev. And I do feel like the arc feels a little bit more mature, but then The can opener looks like it's almost identical to the P4, so perhaps it's just because I do like the bit driver. That definitely, I prefer that to some of the screwdrivers on the P4. And then let's look at some of the tools on the other side. We have the awl and the wire stripper right here. So it is a fairly big departure from the P4. The P4 all had that little like screwdriver tip on the end, and I'm guessing a lot of people were not a fan of that. So Leatherman has gone back to more of a traditional style awl, which I think is neat. And then we have this screwdriver, which is more like a pry bar as well. And I guess the closest one to it would be this, or perhaps this one actually. So some people will regret perhaps that you don't have that box opener on the side. And this one might actually be a little bit thinner. It's not quite as wide there at the bottom. They do integrate that bottle cap lifter as well on the bottom. So instead of having the Phillips have the bottle cap lifter, now the flat driver pry bar does. So some people will perhaps miss this tool as well, which I'm not saying this for sure, but I think you should be able to swap them over if you have that much of an issue with it. I do like the micro bit because I do find myself using that more than I thought. Different times, especially at work, there will be terminals that need a very small flat screwdriver. And that's very hard to find, and so something like this in a multi-tool, I do find myself using more than I thought I would. So we've talked about most of these tools right here. And then, so let's compare the scissors to the P4 right here. Let's go ahead and close these up. So here's the scissors, and they look pretty identical actually. Right here as well. I'm curious if the P4 cuts as well as I found the arc cutting paracord. So it actually does cut really well. I did not remember how well the P4 scissors cut, but they actually do a pretty good job. So we have, and then the scissors seem very similar, and then of course the knife as well is very different because the one is Magna Cut and then the P4 is more of your normal steel as well. And all right, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's actually just compare the outside tools. So here they are right here. We've got the saw, we have got the serrated blade, we have the main blade, and the knife. So on the arc, we have the saw and the main blade, and then we have the file and the scissors. So essentially it looks like the file has replaced the serrated blade on the arc. So I'm guessing a lot of people preferred having more of a diverse array of tools instead of two knives. So some people had mentioned about the thumb stud on the arc, whether it was removable or not, and at first look I did not think it was, but then, and I don't know if I can get the camera to focus right, but on closer inspection I can actually see where it does look like it is a torque screw, and it does look like it is perhaps removable, maybe, but I won't say for certainty or not, but it does look like that might be a possibility if that is something people feel like they need to do. Here we go. So this is the tool set of the arc. Let's go ahead and close all these, and then we'll just fan out again the inside tool set of the P4. So again, they've changed all these tools. Actually, only the can opener remains, well, looks like the same. So all the other tools essentially have changed. So we have the, again, the bit driver, the micro driver, pry bar straight driver, and the awl. And so you no longer have the small file, no longer have this depth gauge tool. And I guess this wire stripper was very similar to the new arc. So that looks very similar actually. I did not remember, I don't use the wire strippers on my Leatherman tools really, to be honest. So that looks very similar as well. So again, these are pretty close in size, exactly the same. Pretty close in length, exactly the same. And the big difference is price. So the P4 is $150. The new Leatherman Arc is $229. So again, there is about an $80 difference. And for that, you do get the updated blade steel, which a lot of people love. I would say you get a more mature looking tool set. One of the issues, again, was that some of these tools just did not look quite mature. I mean, the stubby little file seemed like a little bit of a joke. I did want to address the file. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was that the file, I was surprised, again, how smooth it was. But when I pulled out the curl with the diamond file, it looks pretty much the same. So I think I was just thinking of some of my cheaper Chinese budget tools, and that's probably what surprised me. So, but anyway, again, I don't use the file very much, but it does look very similar to Leatherman's other files. And again, it is a 3-sided file as well. So that is something. And then someone mentioned it is full frame, so it goes all the way. The scissors do not go all the way. So there is a perhaps it's possible for Leatherman in the future to even make a longer pair of scissors. That would be interesting. And then as far as the knife, it goes all the way. And then the saw goes all the way. And it seems like this is cut to rest very close to the edge of the handle in the Arc. With the Leatherman Arc, you do get, I guess it's the updated Leatherman holster. So this is how it looks like in the back. And then I'm used to a lot of my holsters being the smaller size, but this is the larger size. So this is more, I guess, for putting your Leatherman ratchet on the side, or if you have a very small flashlight. I'd mentioned that perhaps a flashlight could fit in here, but even with this, it's a little bit tight, so I'm not sure if it's really designed, perhaps more for a bit driver. And then also inside, it does look like you can fit either in the front. Again, that's pretty tight right there, or in the back rather, or in the front, you can fit a bit kit. I'm not sure if a double-sided bit kit could fit in the front or not, but you do have that option to put it either in the front or the back as well. And again, this is the holster for the Arc. So a lot of unique features. I'm not sure how many. I think a lot of people will buy the Arc because it's new. When it comes right down to it, is it worth the price? That has to be up to you to decide. I think the biggest factor for most people will be the updated blade steel with the Magna Cut. So that's something you'll have to decide. All right, I'll see you in the next video.